Hello and welcome to the show. I am Joe Tophat. Last week, I counted down the top 10 worst episodes of King of the Hill. If you haven't seen that video, click the link down below. This week, I'm going to count down the top 10 best episodes of King of the Hill. Let's begin. Number 10. Maid in Orlin. Khan's mom, Laoma, has moved from Laos to stay with the Sufanusampones. Min, who can't stand her mother-in-law, hires her out to the neighbors as a maid. This is where she meets Bill. The two develop a relationship, much to the annoyance of Khan. Most episodes dealing with Bill's relationship with women usually show him either creepy or pathetic. Here he is having a normal, healthy relationship. In fact, at one point, he told Laoma that he had his heart broken so many times he was afraid of opening up. A normal feeling for a guy like him to have. Most of the humor comes from Khan's reaction to the relationship and how it makes him feel uncomfortable. I really enjoyed their relationship, which I think it's a shame that the writers chose to ignore it and focus on Bill as a pathetic, lonely loser. Oh well, at least we have this one episode. Number 9. The Company Man. Hank's occupation was established in the very first episode, but this is the first time we get to see him at work. Mr. Strickland sends Hank to sell some propane to a Mr. Holloway from Massachusetts. The way Hank sells propane to an important client is normally over coffee, pie, and a handshake. He quickly learns that Mr. Holloway isn't so easily swayed. You see, he is a big fan of cowboys and wants to see some. Holloway becomes fascinated with Strickland rival M.F. Fatherton since he dresses like one. To keep his attention, Hank starts to dress and act like a cowboy, much to his everlasting shame. I always felt so bad for Hank because he's trying to do normal business, but Mr. Holloway is just being unresponsive. And the episode does a great job at playing with stereotypes. In this case, all Texans are cowboys. But one thing I never understood about Mr. Holloway is how come he didn't show any interest in propane? I mean, yeah, I get he's a huge fan of cowboys, but Hank is telling him important things he needs to know. And Mr. Holloway, being a businessman, should be listening. Is this how he conducts his business? If you ask me, Mr. Strickland was better off not having Holloway as a client. Number 8. Hank's Unmentionable Problem. Hank is constipated, but he doesn't want to talk about it. Peggy tries to solve the problem, but he only ignores her. After not pooping for days, he sees a doctor and is faced with the possibility of losing his colon. So the pressure is on for Hank to poop before the operation. Most of the humor comes from Hank being uncomfortable with his constipation. He was a pretty uptight guy in the early episodes, and this one illustrates that. It's just funny seeing Hank's discomfort with his problem. However, this episode does have a serious side. We see Hank giving up the food he loves and basically live like a prisoner. It's hard not to feel sorry for him. And this episode does a great job at showing how a disease can take over a person's life. And it also teaches you not to give in. Though there's one minor nitpick I have. If a doctor doesn't find anything physically wrong, there is no need to operate. But other than that, Hank's Unmentionable Problem isn't a crappy episode. Number 7. Orange You Sad I Say Banana. Yet again, Khan is trying to get into Nine Rivers Country Club. When bringing some important members like Ted Wasanas onto his house, It's discovered that Khan has lost touch with his roots, leading Ted to call him a banana. In order to rediscover his roots, Khan begins to live the way his ancestors did. Khan is normally the biggest jerk in the show, but here the writers do a good job at making him sympathetic. He just wants to join a country club, but Ted makes him feel guilty about how he lives and even pressures him into joining a militia. My favorite part was when Khan was explaining the mission to the guys and how he comes to realize that there is no real chance of it succeeding. If joining a suicide mission is a requirement to join a country club, I'd give up golfing. Number 6. Rich Hank, Poor Hank. During a shopping trip, Bobby asks his dad how much money he makes. Hank, of course, feels it's inappropriate to talk about finances to his son. The problem intensifies when Bobby overhears his dad tell Peggy he made $1,000. Thinking it's what he makes a week instead of a once-a-year bonus, Bobby spreads the word that they're rich, causing his neighbors to hit up Hank for money. Meanwhile, Bobby uses Hank's credit card to go on a spending spree, although I wonder why he's never asked to sign for anything. I love Bobby's ignorance about money and how even the adults who you'd think would know better are just as ignorant. Although I think Hank and Peggy are partially responsible for Bobby's misconceptions, since they refuse to give an actual discussion about finances. Number 5. Escape from Party Island. What do you get when you add Hank Hill, some old ladies, and an island full of spring breakers? You get Escape from Party Island. Tilly and her friends are going to a miniature museum. Because he's concerned about his mom driving such a long distance, Hank volunteers to drive them. You gotta admire Hank's willingness to help out his mom, even though he hates miniatures. Once they get to the island, they soon find it overrun by spring breakers. It's kind of a funny generational thing where the old ladies can't stand him because for whatever reason they don't like him. And Hank in turn can't stand the younger generation because of how wild they are. Tilly wants to add a unicorn to her miniature collection. Hank finds her hobby weird but grows to accept it when he learns that the miniatures helped her through her marriage to Cotton. The side plot of the episode has Bill moving in on Peggy while Hank's away. It's both funny and creepy at the same time. Makes you wonder why Hank stays friends with him. Number 4. The Exterminator. Being exposed to pesticides have taken a toll on Dale's health, meaning he can't be an exterminator anymore, leading him to take a job at a place called Stick Tech. Changing careers is never easy. It takes some time to adjust. And this episode does a good job at showing that. Dale has to give up the things he loves to do. He can't even wear his hat, sunglasses, or smoke his cigarettes, making him look like a different person. I love symbolism. The writers could have just made this episode about how miserable Dale is at his new job. While he does hate the job, they add a twist to it. His co-workers can't fire certain employees for personal reasons. Dale, on the other hand, has no problem, unless he is promoted and enjoys firing people. Well, he does love killing bugs after all. How he gets back into exterminating is very clever, but I won't tell you how, since it's worth seeing for yourself. Number 3. Living on Reds, Vitamin C, and Propane. When your mom inherits a small amount of furniture, do you A. rent a U-Haul, or B. rent an 18-wheeler? If you answered A, you have common sense, but that's not what Hank picked. Hank and Bobby drive to Arizona while the guys stow away in the back of the truck. That premise alone is funny. My favorite part was when Hank and Barbie were at a truck stop and talked to some of the truckers, who are voiced by various country stars. Hank tries to act like he's one of them, but is ridiculed when they learn that he's hauling furniture for his mom. I know we're supposed to feel sympathetic to Hank, and I do, but I do feel the truckers have a point. They do this for a living, and Hank is just doing it for fun. The side plot with Peggy and Luann writing a Christmas song was kind of boring, but its saving grace was Nancy not knowing where Dale is. Number 2. Bobby Goes Nuts. To be honest, I didn't watch King of the Hill when it first premiered. Because it was from the creator of Beavis and Butthead, and I honestly didn't like Beavis and Butthead, I wanted nothing to do with the show. The only reason why I watched this episode was because there was nothing else on. And you know what? I loved it. The story is about Bobby learning how to defend himself after Chain Wasanderson beats him up. Since the boxing course at the Y was full, he takes a woman's self-defense class. He learns how to kick a guy in the groin while yelling, "That's my purse! I don't know you!" Bobby uses it to defend himself at first, but then he abuses the kick. Hank tries to teach his son how to box, only to have Bobby kick him in the nuts. This leads to my favorite part where Bill tells Hank he's been kicked in the testicles very slowly, as if he needed time to comprehend what just happened. Moving past how funny Bobby Goes Nuts is, it does a great job at showing how somebody can go from being a victim to a bully. It's a funny episode that got me to watch King of the Hill. What could be better than that? Well, there is one. Number 1. A Firefighting We Will Go. Somebody on this show was a huge Three Stooges fan. Why do I say this? Because this episode feels like a Stooge short. The music, the catchphrases, the slapstick, even the title sounds like it belongs on the Three Stooges short. Hank, Bill, Dale, and Boomhauer are in big trouble with the fire chief. What do they do? The episode explains through flashback the guys' misadventures as volunteer firefighters. They cause a lot of mayhem Three Stooges style, mostly because they can't seem to get along. At the firehouse they meet Chet Elderson, a retired firefighter who's voiced by Jed Clampett himself, Buddy Epson. When he died, the guys served as pallbearers. Dale refuses to touch the coffin since he feels it's bad luck, which leads the guys to accidentally remove Chet Elderson's pants. Then they burn down the firehouse. Who did it? Each of the guys tells what happened in their own way. Dale portrays himself as muscular, Boomhauer portrays himself as speaking clearly, the only time in the show he does, and Bill portrays himself as fatter and bolder than he really is. Each story shows how their bad habits might have led to the fire. Any one of them could have been responsible. I won't spoil the ending, but I will say that it's clever how they got out of it. Being a Three Stooges fan, I loved all the references, and that is why this episode is number 1. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section if you agreed with this list or not, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.